The silence inside the 23rd floor boardroom felt heavier than grief itself. Outside the glass windows, rain hammered against the skyline like the city was trying to wash away another fallen empire. Inside, billion-dollar dreams were collapsing in slow motion. A stack of bankruptcy papers rested in front of CEO Vanessa Cole, her trembling hand hovering above the signature line while executives avoided eye contact. Years of sacrifice, sleepless nights, and impossible ambition had led to this crushing moment. But just as she lowered the pen, a poor single father sitting quietly near the back of the room suddenly spoke 5 words that stopped the entire company from dying. You missed this number. Before we begin, if you believe kindness, second chances, and ordinary people can change lives in extraordinary ways, take a moment to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share this story with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories that stay with you long after they end. Vanessa Cole had once been called the youngest miracle CEO in Chicago. At 38, she built Cole Dynamics from a tiny warehouse startup into one of the country's fastest-growing logistics software companies. Business magazines featured her on their covers. Investors praised her brilliance. Employees admired her relentless discipline. But success came with a price nobody saw. Vanessa had sacrificed almost everything to build her company. She missed birthdays, ignored relationships, and buried herself in endless work until her entire identity became tied to the survival of the business. Then the economy crashed. Within 8 months, clients disappeared one after another. Contracts worth millions evaporated overnight. Investors who once celebrated her stopped answering calls. Banks demanded payments she could no longer make. Employees began, quietly, packing their desks. Every morning, Vanessa walked through the office pretending to be strong while secretly wondering how much longer she could hold everything together before it all shattered. The worst part was not losing money. It was watching people lose hope. She saw it in the exhausted eyes of accountants working late to save jobs they knew were disappearing. She saw it in the receptionist pretending to smile while calculating how long her savings could pay rent. She saw it in fathers and mothers who depended on the company to feed their families. Cole Dynamics was not just a business anymore. It was hundreds of lives hanging over the edge together. For weeks, Vanessa fought like a soldier refusing to surrender. She sold personal property, drained her retirement account, and even mortgaged the lake house her late father had left her. But the numbers kept getting worse. Every spreadsheet told the same story. The company was finished. That rainy Thursday morning, the board meeting was supposed to be the final chapter. 5 executives sat around the long oak table with defeated expressions. Lawyers organized documents quietly. Nobody spoke unless necessary. The atmosphere felt less like a business meeting and more like a funeral. Vanessa wore a navy blazer she had bought years earlier for her first investor presentation, but now even that symbol of confidence felt heavy on her shoulders. Near the back of the room sat Daniel Ruiz, a temporary maintenance worker who had been fixing electrical wiring on the floor for the past 2 weeks. He was only there because the finance assistant accidentally told him to wait inside while they finished the meeting. Nobody paid attention to him. To the executives, he was invisible. Daniel looked exhausted in the way only life can exhaust someone. His work boots were worn, his hands were rough from years of labor. Dark circles rested beneath his eyes from raising his 8-year-old daughter alone after losing his wife to cancer 3 years earlier. Every day he worked multiple jobs just to survive. In the mornings he repaired appliances. At night he drove deliveries until exhaustion blurred the road ahead. But what nobody knew was that before tragedy destroyed his life, Daniel had studied accounting at community college. He had once dreamed of becoming a financial analyst before dropping out to support his family when his wife became sick. Numbers still fascinated him. Even now, whenever he saw spreadsheets or financial reports lying around offices he cleaned, his eyes naturally drifted toward them. As Vanessa prepared to sign the bankruptcy agreement, one loose page slid slightly across the table. Daniel noticed a figure highlighted in red near the bottom of the report. His tired eyes narrowed instantly. Something was wrong. At first, he stayed silent. Who was he to interrupt corporate executives? But the number kept bothering him. His heart pounded harder. He looked again, then again. Finally, before fear could stop him, he spoke. "You missed this number?" The room froze. Several executives turned toward him with irritation. One lawyer frowned immediately, clearly annoyed that a maintenance worker had interrupted such a critical moment. Vanessa slowly lifted her eyes from the documents, emotionally drained and barely able to process what was happening. Daniel nearly apologized and walked out right there, but something deep inside pushed him forward. He carefully explained that one projected loss calculation appeared duplicated in two separate expense columns. If removed, the company's immediate debt situation changed significantly. Not enough to solve everything instantly, but enough to prevent automatic bankruptcy proceedings and trigger a financial review period. The room erupted into confusion. Executives grabbed reports. Calculators appeared. Papers shuffled rapidly across the table. One accountant suddenly leaned forward with widening eyes. Another executive stood up, completely silent. The chief financial officer began typing frantically into his laptop. Then came the sentence nobody expected to hear. "He's right." Vanessa stared at Daniel as if she were looking at a ghost. The duplicated figure represented nearly $12 million. An exhausted junior analyst had accidentally entered the projected loss twice during an overnight revision weeks earlier. Because everyone expected failure already, nobody questioned the numbers closely enough. The mistake snowballed through every report afterward, convincing banks and investors the company's collapse was unavoidable. But now everything changed. Not magically, not instantly. The company was still drowning in debt. But the corrected numbers bought time, valuable time. For the first time in months, Vanessa felt something unfamiliar. Hope. After the meeting ended, most executives rushed away to contact investors and auditors. Vanessa remained seated alone in the boardroom, staring at the rain outside. Daniel quietly gathered his toolbox, assuming his strange interruption was over. Then Vanessa stopped him. She asked how he noticed the mistake so quickly. Daniel hesitated before admitting he used to study finance years ago. He spoke softly, almost embarrassed by the abandoned dream. He explained how life forced him away from school after his wife became ill. Medical bills buried them in debt long before cancer finally took her. Since then, survival became more important than ambition. Vanessa listened carefully. For the first time in years, she was hearing someone speak without trying to impress her, manipulate her, or gain advantage. Daniel spoke honestly because honesty was all he had left. Over the next several days, Vanessa asked him to help the accounting department review additional reports before the emergency investor meeting. At first, Daniel refused repeatedly, insisting he was not qualified. But eventually he agreed after Vanessa promised temporary consulting pay that could help support his daughter Sophia. What began as a small favor soon became something nobody expected. Daniel had an extraordinary gift for spotting patterns others overlooked. Years of hardship taught him how to see details carefully because survival demanded it. While executives focused on million-dollar strategies, Daniel noticed small inefficiencies draining massive amounts over time. Duplicate vendor contracts, unused software licenses, hidden operational waste. Tiny numerical leaks that quietly bled the company dry. More importantly, Daniel saw the business differently. To wealthy executives, Cole Dynamics was about market value and shareholders. To Daniel, it was about people trying to survive. One evening, Vanessa stayed late reviewing restructuring plans when she noticed Daniel studying a company employee chart. He quietly asked why the company planned to eliminate customer support staff first when they maintained the strongest client relationships. Vanessa explained it was financially necessary. Daniel nodded slowly before saying something that stayed with her forever. And then when people feel abandoned, they stop believing you'll survive. That sentence hit Vanessa harder than any financial report. She realized somewhere along the way she had become obsessed with saving the company's image instead of protecting its heart. Employees no longer trusted leadership because leadership stopped seeing them as human beings. The next morning, Vanessa made a decision that shocked everyone. Instead of announcing immediate layoffs, she gathered every employee into the central office hall. Her voice trembled as she admitted the company was struggling worse than anyone realized. She openly acknowledged mistakes leadership had made. She apologized for treating employees like numbers instead of people. Some workers cried simply because they had never heard a CEO speak with such raw honesty before. Then she introduced Daniel. Executives looked confused, seeing a maintenance worker standing beside the CEO. But Vanessa explained how one overlooked man had saved the company from collapse because he cared enough to speak up when everyone else stayed silent. Something changed inside the building that day. Employees began fighting for the company again. Teams volunteered overtime without extra pay. Departments shared ideas to reduce waste. Managers abandoned ego-driven competition and started cooperating. Even clients noticed the cultural shift. Slowly, painfully, coal dynamics began stabilizing. But the deepest transformation happened inside Vanessa herself. For years, she believed leadership meant appearing invincible. Daniel taught her that real leadership meant listening, especially to people society ignored. The company had nearly died not because of one accounting error, but because arrogance made powerful people stop paying attention to ordinary voices. Weeks later, Vanessa visited Daniel's apartment to personally deliver an official financial consultant offer. The building stood in one of the city's forgotten neighborhoods, where elevators barely worked and hallway lights flickered weakly. When Sophia opened the door, Vanessa's heart broke slightly. The little girl wore a school uniform with carefully sewn repairs near the sleeves. Yet despite obvious hardship, she smiled brightly and proudly showed Vanessa her drawings taped across the apartment walls. Most pictures showed her father wearing a superhero cape. That night, Vanessa sat quietly in her luxury car afterward, unable to stop thinking about the contrast between her world and Daniel's. She owned penthouses, investments, and expensive watches, yet she had never looked at her with the pure admiration Sophia showed her exhausted father. Daniel possessed almost nothing materially, yet somehow he was still rich in the ways that mattered most. Months passed. Coal Dynamics survived. Not only survived, but slowly recovered stronger than before. Investors regained confidence. Clients returned. Revenue stabilized. Vanessa restructured the company culture completely around transparency and employee value. She even created scholarship programs for working parents pursuing education after learning Daniel's story. And Daniel, he accepted the consultant position while finishing his accounting degree at night. For the first time since his wife died, he began believing the future might hold something more than struggle. One winter evening, nearly a year after the bankruptcy meeting, Vanessa stood before hundreds of employees during the company's annual celebration gala. The ballroom shimmered with elegant lights and music, but her speech focused on something far simpler. She told everyone the most dangerous thing a person can become is convinced they already know who matters. Because sometimes the voice that saves your life comes from the person nobody notices. As applause filled the room, Vanessa looked toward Daniel sitting beside Sophia near the front table. The little girl waved excitedly, and Daniel smiled with quiet humility. For a moment, Vanessa remembered that rainy day when she almost signed away everything. 5 simple words had changed countless lives forever. You missed this number. Before we reach the ending, I want you to comment below with one word that describes how this story made you feel. Your comments truly help these stories reach more people who need hope and encouragement in difficult moments. Later that night, after the gala ended and the city lights glowed softly beyond the windows, Vanessa walked alone through the now thriving headquarters. Employees laughed in distant offices. Phones rang again. Life had returned to the building. She stopped beside the same boardroom where everything almost ended. The bankruptcy papers were gone now. In their place sat a framed photograph of the entire company together, smiling proudly after surviving the hardest year of their lives. At the bottom of the frame was a small engraved sentence Vanessa ordered herself. Never ignore the quiet voice in the room. Because greatness does not always arrive wearing expensive suits or carrying impressive titles. Sometimes it walks in wearing worn-out work boots, carrying invisible pain, and fighting battles nobody sees. Sometimes the people society overlooks are the very ones holding the answers everyone else missed. And sometimes when compassion finally replaces pride, even a collapsing empire can find its way back home. If this story touched your heart, inspired you, or reminded you that every human being deserves to be seen and heard, please like this video, share it with someone who may need hope today, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories that prove kindness can still change the world. The snow fell softly across downtown Chicago the night Vanessa Cole received the phone call that nearly destroyed everything all over again. She had just finished reviewing quarterly recovery reports inside her office when her assistant rushed in, pale-faced, barely able to speak. A massive cyber attack had frozen Cole Dynamics' entire logistics network. Delivery systems crashed nationwide within minutes. Warehouses shut down. Client accounts disappeared from servers. Emergency alerts exploded across every screen in the building while panicked managers flooded the hallways. And then came the worst news. The company's recovery funds, every dollar that had saved them from bankruptcy, were missing. Vanessa felt the room spin around her. 1 year earlier, she almost lost her company because of a missed number. Now she might lose it because of stolen ones. Outside the glass windows, red and blue emergency lights reflected across the city streets while employees stared at frozen computer screens in horror. Some workers whispered that this was the end. Others quietly cried, terrified they were about to lose their jobs again after fighting so hard to rebuild the company from the edge of collapse. Vanessa stood motionless in the middle of the chaos, hearing only one thing inside her mind: not again. Before we continue, if you believe people deserve hope even after life knocks them down more than once, take a moment to like this video, comment below, share this story with someone facing hard times, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories that remind us strength is born during our darkest moments. Within hours, news stations across the country began reporting the crisis. Investors demanded answers. Clients threatened lawsuits. Social media exploded with rumors that Cole Dynamics had hidden financial instability for months. The same executives who once praised Vanessa again started protecting themselves first. Some quietly updated resumes. Others prepared statements blaming leadership if the company collapsed. But Vanessa noticed one thing immediately. Daniel Ruiz had not left the building. While executives argued in conference rooms, Daniel sat calmly beside exhausted employees, helping organize timelines and transaction records. He was not a cybersecurity expert, but years of surviving hardship taught him how to stay steady during panic. And right now, steady was exactly what the company needed. At 3 in the morning, Vanessa found him drinking cold vending machine coffee beside a hallway window. Snow covered the streets below while ambulances echoed faintly through the city. Daniel looked exhausted, yet strangely calm. He quietly asked her a question nobody else dared to ask. "When was the last time your employees felt safe?" Vanessa frowned, confused by the timing. Daniel explained that fear makes people desperate. Desperate people make dangerous choices. Somewhere inside the company, someone likely helped create the disaster because they stopped believing the future mattered. At first, Vanessa resisted the idea. She trusted her leadership team. But deep down, she knew fear had quietly returned to the building months earlier. Recovery brought pressure. Pressure brought secrecy. And secrecy slowly rebuilt the same toxic culture that nearly destroyed the company the first time. People had stopped talking openly again. The following days became brutal. Federal investigators entered headquarters. Clients suspended contracts. News helicopters circled above the building like vultures waiting for collapse. Employees avoided eye contact in elevators. Some packed personal belongings just in case. Meanwhile, Vanessa barely slept. Everywhere she looked reminded her how fragile success truly was. One crisis could erase years of sacrifice overnight. She spent long nights alone inside her office staring at financial charts while memories of her father haunted her. Before dying, he once warned her that businesses fail long before the money disappears. They fail when people stop trusting each other. At the time, she thought he meant investors. Now she understood he meant everyone. 3 days into the investigation, Daniel discovered something unusual while reviewing transaction timestamps. Several unauthorized transfers occurred minutes before the cyber attack officially began. Whoever orchestrated the theft understood the company's systems intimately. An insider. The realization crushed Vanessa more than the financial loss itself. Somebody inside the company they rebuilt together had betrayed them. The investigation narrowed toward a senior executive named Richard Hale, a man who had remained beside Vanessa during the company's recovery and the fight. Publicly, he appeared loyal and committed. Privately, he had accumulated enormous gambling debts nobody knew about. As pressure mounted, Richard secretly partnered with outside criminals, hoping to steal company funds before disappearing overseas. But greed makes people careless. Daniel noticed Richard repeatedly altered small accounting schedules in ways almost invisible to others. Tiny timing inconsistencies, minor routing changes, details most executives overlooked because they focused only on large numbers. The same gift that once saved the company now exposed the man trying to destroy it. When federal agents finally arrested Richard inside headquarters, employees watched silently from office hallways. Some looked angry, others looked heartbroken. Vanessa simply stood frozen beside the lobby staircase while handcuffs clicked around the wrists of a man she once trusted completely. Richard briefly turned toward her before leaving. "You think they'll stay loyal forever?" he snapped bitterly. The moment things get hard again, everyone saves themselves. The words lingered painfully after he disappeared, because part of Vanessa feared he might be right. That evening she walked through the darkened office alone long after everyone left. Snow still drifted outside while city lights blurred against the windows. She remembered the day she built the company from nothing, believing hard work guaranteed success. But life had taught her otherwise. Hard work had built something. Only trust could keep it alive. As she entered the employee break room, she noticed Daniel sitting with Sophia at one of the tables helping her finish homework. The little girl smiled warmly when Vanessa entered and proudly showed her a school essay titled, "Oh My Hero." Vanessa expected it to be about firefighters or athletes. Instead, Sophia had written about her father. She described how heroes are not people who become famous. Heroes are people who keep going when life gives them reasons to quit. People who work long nights while hiding their pain so others can feel safe. People who help strangers even when they have almost nothing themselves. By the time Vanessa finished reading, tears blurred her vision. For years, she chased admiration from magazines, investors, and business leaders. Yet the purest definition of success was sitting quietly at a plastic break room table written in the handwriting of an 8-year-old girl. The next morning, Vanessa made the boldest decision of her career. Instead of hiding the company's crisis behind lawyers and public relations statements, she gathered every employee together again. Thousands joined through live video streams across offices nationwide. Her voice shook emotionally as she admitted everything openly. She explained the cyber attack, the stolen funds, the betrayal inside leadership, the fear, the uncertainty. Then she said something no CEO in the room expected. "I cannot promise you perfection anymore," she said softly, "but I promise you honesty." Silence filled the building. Vanessa continued by announcing that executives, including herself, would temporarily reduce their salaries to protect employee jobs during recovery. She invited workers from every department to participate in rebuilding strategies directly instead of decisions remaining hidden among executives alone. And finally, she publicly promoted Daniel Ruiz to Director of Operational Integrity. The entire company erupted into applause. Many employees cried openly because for the first time in years they felt seen. Over the following months, something remarkable happened. Workers fought for the company harder than ever before, not because they feared losing jobs, but because they finally believed they mattered. Departments collaborated closely. Employees exposed hidden inefficiencies voluntarily. Managers became mentors instead of supervisors. Even clients who had planned to leave stayed because they trusted the honesty coming from leadership. Cole Dynamics slowly recovered once again. But this recovery felt different. It was no longer built on ambition alone. It was built on humanity. One spring afternoon, nearly 18 months after the cyber attack, Vanessa received an invitation to Sophia's elementary school career day. At first, she almost declined due to meetings. Then she remembered how many important moments success had already stolen from her life. So she went. Inside the brightly decorated classroom, children proudly introduced parents working as nurses, mechanics, teachers, and construction workers. When Sophia's turn arrived, she walked confidently to the front holding her father's hand. "This is my dad," she said proudly. "He fixes problems people don't notice." The classroom smiled politely, but Vanessa felt tears forming instantly because those simple words described Daniel perfectly. and maybe describe the kind of leader she was finally becoming too. After the presentations ended, Vanessa remained behind watching children laugh across the playground outside. Daniel stood beside her quietly beneath the warm spring sunlight. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Vanessa admitted something she had never confessed to anyone. "Even when the company almost collapsed the first time, I thought saving it would finally make me happy," she whispered. "Ah, but I was still lonely, still exhausted, still afraid." Daniel nodded gently. Like sometimes surviving isn't the same as living." That sentence stayed with her for weeks. Soon afterward, Vanessa began changing her life the same way she once changed her company. She stopped sleeping inside the office. She visited employees personally instead of hiding behind conference rooms. She rebuilt relationships with her estranged younger sister after years of silence. She even created a foundation helping single parents return to school while working full-time, because Daniel taught her something priceless. Success means nothing if nobody feels human beside you. Years later, business schools studied coal dynamics as one of the greatest corporate recoveries in modern history. Journalists praised Vanessa's leadership transformation. Investors admired the company's culture. Employees proudly called the business family. But inside Vanessa's office, the most important thing on her desk was not an award or financial report. It was Sophia's handwritten essay on my hero. Before we reach the ending, comment below if this story reminded you that ordinary people often carry extraordinary strength inside them. Your support helps these emotional stories reach hearts around the world. One quiet evening after work, Vanessa stood once more inside the same boardroom where she almost signed bankruptcy papers years earlier. Sunset painted the city gold beyond the windows while employees laughed somewhere down the hallway. She looked at the framed company photograph still hanging beside the wall. I never ignore the quiet voice in the room. Only now she understood the message even more deeply. Because life is not changed only by brilliant people standing at the center of attention. Sometimes it changes because one exhausted single father refuses to stay silent, because one little girl still believes goodness matters, because someone struggling quietly in the background still chooses kindness when bitterness would feel easier. The world often teaches us to admire power, but the people who truly save us are usually the ones who never ask to be noticed at all. If this story touched your heart, inspired you, or reminded you to value the unnoticed people around you, please like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories about hope, resilience, and second chances that can change lives forever.